Right, welcome to the first of my demonstrations on how to make reports slightly easier. So at my school I have to write 2 sentences, and generally in most year groups I have to write about 150 reports across history and music. So I've had to find some cheats along the way to make it easier. So the first thing I do is create a standard set of sentences that covers the things I want to report on. Now, obviously in 2 sentences, there's a limit on what I can do, but you could expand this across much further to do a much more in-depth report if you wanted. So I usually start with in year 9, then I'd have their name here, and I'll show you how to input them in a moment. Has demonstrated, and then an adjective will go in here, and I'll show you how to create a drop down box in a moment. But my adjectives there will be has demonstrated an excellent, good or poor attitude to learning in history. Then gender, he, she, they. Has, I would need to change that to have for they, so I could change that to drop down box. I usually just edit it if I've used they. And then I've got always, consistently, mostly, occasionally or rarely completed and submitted homework promptly. In order to make further progress, they need to, and I've created some targets that are subject specific or things like hand in the homework. So let's go through how to set this up, and then I'll teach you how to create each of the reports and copy and paste them across. So first of all, these drop down boxes, they look really posh. They are actually incredibly easy to do. Now you can create the adjectives somewhere else on the sheet. I get distracted very easily. I don't like clutter on my sheet, so I like to put mine into a separate thing that I call my lookup sheet. And so I always put little titles in to remind myself which one's which. But excellent, good, poor is the one that I want to add in my first adjective. You can see here's my second drop down, here's my third drop down, here's my fourth drop down. Right, so how we go about doing this. So we start off with, in the first space where we want to put it, we want to create a lookup area. So we go to Insert, and then we scroll down to Drop Down, just down here. Clicker there, and we can see it comes here. Now I want to drop down from a range. There's lots of options here. I like to write mine somewhere and put them in, and you can see the little box has appeared. At the moment it will have nothing in it because I haven't told it where to look it up. So then I go to my page where I've got my comments that I want. I click here to say this is where I want it, and I click on the very first one, and it immediately comes up with, oh, look up. It's creating the formula for you. I press Shift to my last one I want, and then I click OK, and I click Done. I can then close that down. I can add more rules to it and that, but I don't need to make it any more complicated than that. And so now when I come here, I've got those options there. Right, the next thing that's often useful is that quite regularly the report things that are exported from places like Sims have both the first name and last name in there, and you don't want to be spending time writing them out. So you copy and paste them in, select the top one, Shift, select the bottom one. If you go to the data menu, you can see split text to columns. You can ask it to detect it automatically, or you can tell it, right, I want you to split it where there's a comma, I want you to split it where there's a semicolon, etc. So in this one, I want it to split it where there's a space. And so now I can copy and paste in my students' names, as usual, going with Harry Potter rather than Bell's Children. And then I can get rid of this list off my page, so again, my page just looks neat. That's me. So on the most part then, all I have to do is select each of my comments, go to the corner where there's the plus, and drag it down in order to copy it. Drag down, and so I'm getting a full set. Whoops, I went one too far that time, so I'm just going to take him back up again. or it would be easier, just press delete. I'm just creating a template that can cover every single one of my students and how they're getting on in their subjects. So each one, click on the box, go to the corner till you get the plus, drag it down. And then this one, right, I'll leave this one for the moment because I'm going to show you that in a moment. The only problem is if your column includes any numbers, because if I do that with a number, it very helpfully ups the number each time, which I'm sure is very useful for most people who use spreadsheets to do with mathematics and all the rest of it. When we're using it for a report, we don't want that. So I literally just copy, Control-C, and paste it in. This is the longest winded bit of it, but it gets rid of that particular issue. So, in Year 9, Harry has demonstrated excellent attitude to learning and history. He has consistently completed and submitted homework promptly. In order to make further progress, they need to ensure they read and meet the assessment criteria. Now, if I were to just copy and paste that into the spreadsheet from Sims or whatever data tracking program your school uses, it would end up with awkward spaces in it that you then have to go and edit. You don't want to be doing that. That takes far too long. You might as well have written them all from scratch. So there's this wonderful tool that's available. I'm not sure exactly how you pronounce it. I'm going to go with concatenate. I'm sure somebody can tell me how to pronounce it properly. I'm going with concatenate. But you basically put in your equal sign as usual when you want it to do some work for you. Put in concatenate, open the brackets, and then tell it, I want this one, then I want a little gap, then I want this one, then I want a space between those two, then I want this one, no space, that one. And generally with the spaces, I let it create it and then I just edit it around to check that I've got rid of all the spaces. So if I now come across here, you can see I've actually got a completed report for Harry Potter that I can then copy and paste across. And of course, as with all the rest of them, if I take my little cross and pull it down, you can see it's already starting to fill in Hermione and Ron, but we've got the gaps here where the words need to go in for attitude to learning and all the rest of it. So as I fill it in, that will then start filling that in. When I've completed all of these across, I can copy and paste these directly into my spreadsheet provided by my data manager. So I hope that is useful to you. If you have any questions, please just pop them in the comments on my blog. I will happily answer. The next one will be how to use Google Forms to create longer reports, and I hope to have that up soon. Have a great day, and remember, save as much time as you can for doing the stuff you love.